Our conversation today is with Tim Pries. He has an ad agency out on the West Coast, as they say, WTBR, Where the Buffalo Roam. Tim, thanks for being with us today.
Happy to be here.
So when we're teaching entrepreneurship, you have to eventually pitch your idea to someone, right? And that involves storytelling. And we thought you'd be the perfect person to talk with. You have told stories for such great clients as Airbnb, Google. You've had a Super Bowl ad. So you know that there is an art to storytelling and getting your message out, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So how does your company go about working with a client and discovering how to tell a story?
Yeah, so we work with a number of clients in different ways, and we're kind of a model of a production agency where sometimes we work straight with client and sometimes we work with an agency. But I think typically to get the story out, you're trying to figure out do they have a client brief, and in that brief, usually you're trying to figure out who this is going to, who you're telling the story to, and then also why you're telling the story. Those are two pretty big factors. So the why kind of leads up to maybe a strategy that they have, whereas the who, the audience, kind of determines who you're speaking to and why you tell that story to them.
Yeah, so it's more than just show and tell. You have to get the mood, you have to get the temperature just right. Now, when you pitch to a client, when you go and research the company and you say, this is what we think, this is how we think the message should be, how often do they say, yeah, that's it, that's us, and how often do they push back and say no, and you have to work it out?
Yeah, oftentimes the creatives wish that we could sell it through right away, and sometimes the clients do, and it ladders back sometimes to the strategy that a client might have and serve up, but most times it becomes a conversation. We typically like to go in with a few different ideas. They'll gravitate towards a few, and then we'll fine tune those. So, some of the strongest ideas I think sometimes come from just being born from just a great idea that doesn't get too watered down, because too many times there are the layers that you have to go through, and the story sometimes doesn't get to a great result. But sometimes if it's additive, in the whole yes and era, then that kind of can be something better than where you started.
Yeah,
which is always the hope, I think, for the client and for us.
Well, and that's an exercise we do in the class. And for those who have not had that yet, you throw out an idea, and then the next person has to say yes and the goal is to build on an idea and to take all the input to give it validation. And the opposite of that is to go yes but, which is just sort of the buzzkill, right? I mean, you just take an idea and slowly just squash it till there's nothing left. Yes, but that'll never work. Yes, but then we have to go do blah. But if it's yes and then we could do this, and yes and then we could add this. So it's sort of a mindset going into the creative process. So the takeaway there would be that everyone on the team has to be open to all ideas until you distill it down to what really is going to work.
It's true. And then we also get into the thing where, in certain clients that we work with, someone does have the final call. And, we've heard great quotes of, what I'm looking at, what my biggest nightmare is right now is what I'm looking at right now.
You've actually had someone say that?
Yeah, we've had some people tell us that. And so, and you've got someone to say, hey, are you ready to ship this out? And they say, no, I'll tell you when I'm ready to ship this out. I'm not happy with it. And so you do deal with hierarchy, and someone does need to have the final say when it comes to that sort of creative process. But you all kind of hope to get in at least a shot at presenting your idea until it gets shot down, because there is a strategy or a space where the idea does have to live in for their brand or for the message or for the audience where it's going. So sometimes you just
I'm sorry. I've got two things I want to ask you. First, for our entrepreneurs who have to go and pitch, they're going to get shot down. I mean, that's part of it. So I have two questions or 2 points I want you to make. Number one, handling the rejection, particularly if it's a personal creative idea. I mean, it still has to sting, right?
Yeah.
I know from being out playing music and somebody else play something, it's like, oh, okay, here we go. And then
Okay.
second, I
Yeah.
want you to walk through an example you had with the client. Just tell us the story of how you got from the beginning to the final product, and it doesn't matter to me which one you pick out. But first, start with how do you handle feedback that sometimes is less than diplomatic?
There's a lot of that, I think, especially whether you're pitching from an entrepreneurial standpoint and trying to get something out there, or anything that comes from your heart or creative idea, and it's gonna happen. I think everyone says you kind of have to have tough skin or thick skin or whatever, but I also think it's still gonna hurt every time. I think it's just a matter of holding on to that idea and taking it to somebody else, because it's a lot about timing and windows too, and who's ready to hear that idea. We certainly get feedback that we don't like because we put our heart and soul into something, or countless hours. We worked on a huge pitch where I think many of us clocked over 120 hours in the week for weeks, and we didn't get the pitch. And that one, it hurts when you put that much effort into something. But you just hope you win the next one. And what did you learn, and what can you take forward to figure out the next one to grow from? And I think that's, for me, the biggest thing each time, learning and taking it to the next pitch or project or whatever it is that you're kind of up against.
Well, walk us through a time when you guys got it right, where you were really happy and your client got it, and what that process was like, and the feeling when you've nailed it. Because I think our entrepreneurs are going to need that as they try to develop their first pitches, when you have that feeling in your gut that, we're right on track here.
Yeah. I think a lot of it too, there's, I think, projects that you win, or deals that you close, that you put up a decent idea. But I think when they actually stem from your heart that you put into it, there was a couple that we pitched and won, and it felt so good because it wasn't just a project that you were trying to land to kind of keep the lights on. Oftentimes they say they're projects, one for the meal and one for the real. One are to keep everybody busy and have everyone be employed, and the others are the ones that you can't wait to put on your reel. You can't wait to share with everyone. I think, we pitched a project for Android, and that was a huge win for us. The pandemic had just hit. It was a massive project, and it was maybe one of our, most heartfelt big wins, because it was such a big job. We all needed the project to go through and try and make it through this new world that we live in, and the end result, I think, is one of our favorite, and a project that we're very proud of, because we told these real human stories about people in a way that we'd never done before, in a way that they kind of hadn't put out there.
So we think of entrepreneurs as being these rugged individuals, but more and more often it's a team, and it's teamwork, right? Bouncing ideas off each other is an art. So the creative process is an art, getting through all that. So how do you guys work together as a team? And in the context of our entrepreneurs are going to be creating companies, and they'll have teams together. What suggestions do you have for them as to how to make it work or effective?
I've got a really great business partner that I'm thankful for, that we were friends for 10 years before we started the company together, and we remain friends. And I feel very fortunate to have him to bounce ideas off of, and then we have a larger team that we all do the same. And I think even in the simple context, if you think about sometimes when you're trying to figure out what to get for lunch, and you're like, I don't know, should we get a sandwich? Do we get a salad? It's just having somebody to ask the simplest questions to, and then the difficult questions, and then having the patience, because you will have growing pains and difficulties along the road. But I think having a good, whether it's a partner or team, that you can be communicative, that you can talk through any issue, that you don't let stuff build. I think that is a core component to really having a successful business or partnership, or whatever it ends up being. It for us is kind of our, we have a weekly partners meeting, but we also joked when we first started the company, we had been working on, kind of getting things set up all day, and he dropped me off at my place and said, I'll talk to you tomorrow. I said, we'll talk every day from here on out. So I think having the dialogue, great communication, and kind of someone that you can lean on. We've seen other friends that have had partnerships and or companies that they started, and they didn't have that dynamic of having kind of a good friendship to start it, and didn't fare as well.
So I wanted to talk with you primarily about storytelling as it relates to entrepreneurship, but you also are textbook definition of an entrepreneur. You took you a while to finish college. I was on the 6-year program myself.
Yep.
You interned at Saturday Night Live. You did a little stand-up comedy, and then you ended up working for a large agency. Going off on your own must have been scary. Heck, it's probably still scary. I mean, you've got the pandemic and you've got employees. So tell us a bit just about your decision to start your own firm and how that has worked out, and what our prospective entrepreneurs might take away from that.
Yeah. I did end up, after a long kind of road at Goodby Silverstein, a big agency, and
Was that the
left
Got
there and
Milk
actually
company? Was that the one that did
That
Got
was,
Milk?
yeah. So they were, put Got Milk on the map, and they did the Bud Light Lizards, if you remember way back in the day, and they've done and continue to do a bunch of great work. They Jeff and Rich are just amazing sort of leaders, and so anyways, I was at Goodby and left there actually to go to a smaller company called Google, and did a couple of tours there. And I remember having that same thought of leaving this great agency, Goodby Silverstein, and what am I thinking? And I went to Google, and when I left Google after my contract ended and decided kind of not to extend there, I thought, am I crazy to leave this small company, Google, to go out and start our own thing, where it was literally just me in my apartment for 3 months, trying not to lose my mind. And it was a roll of the dice that I think, been thankful for having great bosses along the way, and great role models and great mentors. But we just kind of came down to, we wanted to try our own thing and make our own path. And we started the company with the mantra, be good people, make good things. We wanted to work with people that we enjoyed working with. We wanted to work with clients that we wanted to work with. And we wanted to try and put good out there in the world wherever we could, by doing things like trying to do volunteer days more often, and giving back to the community when we can, and taking projects that we weren't allowed to take before because we were beholden to a boss or a bottom line, and kind of taking that risk. I think that for us made it all worth it. Despite as stressful as this last year's been with the pandemic, I think we're still super happy that we gave it a shot.
Yeah, and you're sort of in the touchy-feely, artsy space, right? I mean, if you do your job well, you're going to evoke some kind of emotion. It could be laughter, it could be it's just some kind of empathy, right? That's your job.
Yep.
But, having said that, you still have to deal with HR. You still have to deal with payroll. You still got to go sell. So how do you balance the left brain, right brain stuff?
It's a great question, Jeff. I think I'll always be trying to work on that, to fine tune it. But I think during the pandemic, I definitely had to create a schedule, and I would get up at 4 a.m. and work out, and then I'd work from 6 to 8 to do all those things, the HR, the payroll, and the management, and then from 8 to 6 you're on calls all day. But it's tough because there's you've got these brilliant people that you get to work with that have these creative minds that just blow you away, and yet we're all kind of people underneath that. And how do you best manage and support them as maybe they're getting the client feedback that says they don't like the cut or like what they've created? So it's definitely a balance. I think taking time for yourself when you can, and whether it's exercise or reading or just staring at the river going by. But I think it's always a balance to try and figure it out. I think having a good support team around you to help you, through those, to lean on, and then kind of reaching out and asking for help when you need it, as your, team allows you to. But I just think being open and honest, and taking a break when you need to, it's really important. We do a better job at telling our staff that they need to take a break than we do sometimes, but I think it's important.
Yeah, we've talked about the work-life balance before. In fact, one of the textbooks used in the entrepreneurship class, it's not really a textbook, it's a book that you recommended to me years ago called 10% Happier. And the feedback we have gotten from our students on that book has surprised us, how some have found it very valuable. Not all. Some don't get it because it's not a textbook, but those who do,
Right.
it is impactful. So, and the whole point of the book is there's probably nothing that is going to make you 100% happy. We're humans, it's not going to. But the
Right.
concept of being 10% happier can really be impactful on your day-to-day life. And if you're juggling one job, trying to start a business, or in the case of our students, a full load of classwork, maybe a part-time job, and trying to start a
Yeah.
business, it can be incredibly stressful. So having that balance is critical.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's almost one of those things I wish, later you figure out like, oh, the 10% happier, that would be great. Or I wish I would have maybe listened to some better financial advice or relationship advice later. Later you figured out, but having that early on, I don't know. I just feel like I wish someone had tapped on my shoulder
Yeah.
when I was 20 and said, hey, by the way,
Yeah, if we
I mean,
would
that's
have
you
listened.
at
If you,
times, Jeff.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
I did. Well, you turned
Yeah.
out all right. Tim, I can't, number one, congratulations on the success of Where the Buffalo Roam. And number two, thank you for sharing that story and your journey, and offering some suggestions to our students considering entrepreneurship.
Happy to help.
All right,
Good to
appreciate
see
it.
you.
Good to see you too. Thanks.